Yeah, it was interesting. I just thought that in order to be a good wife, I just needed to agree to everything. So I wouldn't like think too much for myself with like critical thinking or even have opinion. That was something that Jeremy was like, oh, I want you to have your own opinion, think through it, and let's have fun together. But I was just like so uptight, afraid to say anything, because that was what I was taught.
Wow.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. I'm back. My face is here. I did a couple days of voiceovers, but I was able to put some makeup on. My head doesn't hurt as bad. I don't know if anyone else has been dealing with like a million different colds, but I have. So in the middle of all of this, I've had to have to have a job and I have to work. So I'm glad you stuck with me for the last few days of voiceovers. We had a couple days of a lot of Sister Wives content. Today is going to be a little bit more about the Duggars because Anna Duggar Forsyth took a trip and she went to Los Angeles and she visited her sister Jinger last week. Well, I don't know when this would have happened. Jinger was in New York, and so apparently at some point in the last week, Joy was there visiting Jinger and Jeremy and the kids. So it must have been when Jinger got back from her tour in New York when she did all those interviews for the launch of her book. And if you're wondering if Jinger has stopped giving interviews, no, she had another interview, multiple today, actually. She's on a podcast with another MacArthur person. And then she's on another, like a Washington, D.C. Fox channel. She has been on the Daily Blast multiple times now. And she is really pushing this book. It's fascinating to me. I have never seen someone do so many interviews with so many outlets and say the exact same things. I understand book tours, you do a lot of publicity, but this is unique to me. I've never seen anything like this. And they didn't do this much publicity with their last book by any means. Perhaps it's that she's taking on the IBLP and she wants to saturate the news with the story about the harmful teachings, but then the interviews all end up kind of being redundant and the same. But maybe it's just the news cycle so that people buy the book, although the book is already a bestseller and sold out in a lot of different places. So either way, the book tour is working because people are buying the book. And there's been, criticism. I have pointed out some discrepancies with the book in that it's co-authored by John MacArthur's chief communications officer at the Master's Seminary and the spokesperson, by the way, of the Master's Seminary. So when scandals happen, when bad things happen there, or when a press release is put out, the man who does those legit wrote her book. I actually spent some time looking through some of his blogs and was kind of shocked to find that some of the beliefs that are in her book are from his blog. I also found some vlogs that Jeremy made where he basically describes Grace Church almost the exact same way Jinger does in the book. I don't know where Jinger's at in the process of actually deconstructing. I don't know if she even recognizes what she's involved in with John MacArthur, but he's in the news for a lot of the same reasons that Mr. Gothard got in trouble. And so not directly, people are not accusing him of misconduct, but they are accusing like his staff and him of hiding and covering up for people that have done bad things like SA and keeping women in really destructive relationships, not allowing them to leave and divorce their husbands that are doing horrible things like DV to them. And it's been these allegations against MacArthur have been going on for several years. And so, obviously this book puts him in a much favorable light, but it hasn't stopped the negative press. In fact, I think it's exacerbated things because there's a bigger spotlight on him now. And so there's a lot more people talking about the harmful impacts of his church. So anyways, in the middle of all of that, Jinger and Jeremy have not been asked any questions about that. Nobody in the outlets are asking about MacArthur. They're all focusing on the IBLP because that's what she claims this book is about. She claims that the IBLP is bad and her new church is good, and she found the truth in her new church. At the end of the day, though, this coming out against the IBLP and against the fundamental teachings of her family does put her in a precarious situation with her loved ones, because some of them are still in the IBLP and some of them are not. Some of them are open about being out of the IBLP and others are not. And everyone's sort of at this different space. In the midst of all of that, Jim Bob has literally sent half his kids over to Italy, apparently, so that they can't be sucked into the media and be asked a million questions by outlets, maybe get them out from the bad publicity and maybe keep them away from potentially going to visit Jinger. I don't know. But Joy did go down to visit Jinger and posted about it on her Instagram, and then Jinger did as well. So let's dive into this topic of Joanna is going to Ginger's place and the Duggars send the kids out of the country. Before we dive into today's topic, can you do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed, and turn the notifications on so you know when I go live or new content loads. And as always, make sure to leave a comment if you have something to say and share this video with your friends. Okay, so a couple days ago, I promised that I would show you some of Jeremy's sermons, and I promise I will still get to that. If you haven't been following me on Instagram or on Facebook, go over there. A bunch of his sermons have been posted. I also have linked Jeremy to the promotion of Mark MacArthur, who is John MacArthur's son, who is actually facing fraud charges by the SEC for this like $16 million scheme. And Jeremy was promoting him like one day after the SEC indicted him, and that podcast is still up. It's not been retracted, and Jeremy has never retracted his statements about Mark. Interesting. Anyways, so Jeremy and Jinger find themselves in a precarious situation because I think they are being used, my opinion, by MacArthur because of their celebrity. And I think that they can be a face for MacArthur. And this isn't unique. A lot of cults do this. They use celebrities to make them look legitimate. They use celebrities for their celebrity platforms to like promote their books and their teachings and whatever. And it's not unique to MacArthur. But they have found themselves in where Jinger and her family were once promoting the IBLP. Jinger and Jeremy now find themselves like being used by MacArthur, and maybe they enjoy being used by MacArthur. But I have a sense that if they have any sort of separation from these teachings, they may realize in a few years what is going on. So anyways, in the middle of this, Jinger has hit the New York Times bestseller list, and Jinger shared a post on her Instagram that says, "My beautiful sister Joy Forsythe came to visit with her family this past week. We had the best time together." And Jinger Duggar responded by saying, jealous, so glad y'all get to chill together. And then James said, "Sounds like a party." And Jinger says, "Yeah, you should have been here." And the interesting thing is that James responded. Well, James and Jinger, I think, have always had a close relationship, but I don't think that he's responding to anything about her book, right? So he's like glad to see that Joy is visiting his sister, and he and Joy are close. James and Joy are close. So anyways, Jinger Duggar consistently comments on Ginger's posts, and I just want to point this out that like if you're Jill, you have been shunned by the family since 2017, and you have spoken out publicly against your family. You have literally put on the record like you've had disagreements with your father. There were things about the show that were very controlling. You found your relationship with your father to be controlling. Your husband has called your father verbally abusive. He has spoken out against, voting for Jim Bob. Jill and Derek have been very vocal in their don't believe the hype of my dad, okay? Jinger, for her part, with her book, is very different because she continues to say, "I love my parents. I don't have anything against them. It's just these teachings. They just wanted the best for us," even though the teachings themselves are what her parents brought into the house and have led to her dad being extremely controlling and very authoritarian. So much so that she writes about it in her book. She, in her book, discusses about how her dad has been such an authoritarian and commanding her to obey him, much like what Jill has done publicly, but she wrote it in a book. Either way, since 2017, Jill has been labeled the dangerous sister, and she also had to go to an attorney to get a wage claim, which she basically filed against her father in order to get paid for her time working on TLC because she had a show in her name and didn't even have a contract to get paid, right? Anyways, so I always get sad when I see Jill commenting on posts and Jinger just ignores her. And in fairness, Jinger doesn't comment a lot, but she really never comments on Jill stuff. She did share, like, if Jill tags Jinger in a post, right, on a story, and it will help Ginger's book, for instance, like she promoted Ginger's book and said, oh, look, it's in Siloam Springs. Jinger shared that because I'm sure it helps her book sales. And she shared a video that Jill made for her story, which again was of promoting her book. But when Jill just leaves like innocuous comments, Jinger rarely responds. And I guess you don't always have to respond to your siblings. It's just so weird because she like will respond to some of her siblings and not Jill. And a lot of the siblings do this to Jill. And it's probably because her dad, Jim Bob, has labeled her dangerous and says that she is, she can't be trusted. And even if you leave a cult because they've been pitted against each other, it is hard to repair those relationships. When you have a narcissistic parent, they spend their entire lives pitting kids against each other and putting people in triangulated situations where everyone else is so unstable because that's how they keep control and it keeps them from talking to each other. So I just hope in the future, as the evolution of Jinger continues, that she might wake up to the fact that her sister Jill was not trying to hurt her or the family, but that rather she's been slandered by her father. And it's going to happen with Jinger. Whether she likes it or not, she's going to be slandered because she has spoken out against the IBLP. Joy goes to go visit her, right? And a lot of people were like, well, is this damage control that like they want them to make it seem like Jinger is close to someone that's in the family? Or is it that Joy is defying Jim Bob and visiting her and supporting Jinger through the book? It could be both. So she could be going there like as a way to like, I wouldn't put it past Jim Bob to like have one of the siblings go to report back to him because they are so ingrained with Jim Bob. And, I could see that. But it could also be that Joy is waking up and doesn't want to let this divide her and her sisters. Jinger is going to be in a very delicate place, and she's going to learn, like Jill, that once you speak out against the IBLP, they start to play games. And so they use people that are still in the IBLP to try to bring you back into the fold. And they also have people that are like in the IBLP spy for their parents. It happens all the time. Let's hope it's not that and that Joy is starting to wake up, although it will be very hard for Joy to leave simply because, well, she still goes to the church with the Duggars. She sings in the choir at the Duggars church. She's very invested with her family. Her husband's family is very invested in the same group. They might not all ascribe per se to the IBLP, but it's infected all of these pastors around the Duggars and all of the Duggar friends that follow this teaching. And Joy is still friends with all of them too. So Joy is still in the fold. So either Joy is willing to break free and break rules by seeing Jinger, or she's going for Jim Bob. And I want to believe that it's not that one. I want to believe that she's trying to just keep things open and wants to maintain a healthy relationship with her sister and doesn't want to let her dad get in the middle of that. But anything is possible, right? In the meantime, all the other siblings that could potentially be influenced by Jinger that might get a wild hair up their booties to go visit her are in Italy. Well, maybe Jason would go visit her, but Jason isn't in Italy and Jason isn't visiting Jinger. I don't know what Jason's doing. He's probably building a house somewhere. So Jim Bob has a pretty thick agenda, like send the kids away that are like still in the fold, and the other ones that are sort of on the fringes will have to, it's like a toss up. I really do hope that Joy does open up and realizes that she's in a cult and she doesn't have to have a million kids. She's only 25 and she's having her third child. And if you are 25 and you have 5 kids, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that this cult specifically does not believe in birth control, and women are groomed from a young age to believe that they have to have as many kids as possible because it's a sign of God's blessings. So when your whole life you've been told that you need to have a million kids because the more kids you have, the more blessed you are by God, it's hard to break that. And so I hope Joy can learn, maybe through conversations with some of her sisters that are left, that she has options and it doesn't have to be what she grew up with. And that's the best you can hope for. My hope throughout all of this is that all of the girls that were victimized by Josh will somehow find unity together. because the best way to defeat a narcissist is to actually get past the pitying, get past the division that they've created, and share stories, because usually you can share stories and realize they lied about you to the narcissist lied about you to the other person, and you were lied about to the other person by the narcissist. And once you realize that it's all big fat lie, you can actually be stronger in numbers to defeat the narcissist game. But narcissists are very good at keeping people separated. So anyways, in the final part of this video, I just wanted to also highlight that in Ginger's book, she happened to have this like issue with Joshua Harris. And I'm not sure if you know who Joshua Harris is. He wrote the book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. I've talked to you about this a little bit. So I actually reached out to Joshua and I said, like, how do you feel about Jinger sort of dragging you into this book and like sort of condemning you for what you've done? And he said he was bummed. And I said, do you feel like you've ever had any sort of beef with her, or do you have issue with John MacArthur and his team? And he says they have a problem with him, because Joshua actually was part of the new Reformation movement. So the whole like group of pastors that were like really big and like pushing the Reformed Baptist doctrine. And because he was on that circuit, he was rubbing elbows with all of these guys, including MacArthur. And they don't like that Joshua has left the church and is speaking out against their doctrine, because it threatens their church. It threatens their membership. It threatens to expose their secrets. And so it seems like Joshua Harris, who Miss Jinger admits, I never read his book, I didn't know who he was really, I just knew he was homeschooled, deconstructed. She also misleads people and says that Joshua leads seminars for deconstruction. That's not actually true. He did, while the rise and fall of Mars Hill, which was Mark Driscoll's church, when that podcast was released on Christianity Today, he started offering deconstruction classes during that. Within a day, he received a ton of backlash and he offered the classes for free. He learned from his mistakes. He also, if you didn't know this, went around the country and met with people that were impacted by his book and apologized to them and heard their stories and listened to the victims that were created as a result of his teaching. And he brought in experts. He also learned about, how he was actually groomed as a kid to do this, because he grew up believing this doctrine, and like how he was sort of in many ways used by his father's church to become this guy. He was involved in a scandal at the church that he was formerly at, Sovereign Grace, where they were covering up the SA and not reporting it to police the same way that John MacArthur's church is being accused of right now. But he took ownership of it and he stepped away from the ministry, and now he's just trying to do the right thing. And he also got his book pulled off the shelves. So his publisher no longer publishes the book. And if you can find it online, it's usually just like copies that are still remaining for sale. There's no more printing of the book. So he's taken a very different route, where he's denounced the teaching, he's had the book pulled, he's apologized to people, he's went on a tour to like hear from the victims, and now he is deconstructed and he does help people, but he's not charging them, especially if they were affected by his book. So if you want to know more about Josh's story, there's an episode of The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill where it's a bonus episode on him. It's by Christianity Today, and I think it's like bonus episode 8 maybe, but check it out. It'll give you a whole rundown about Joshua Harris. But long story short, Joshua and Jinger don't have any beef. And I'm of the opinion that his addition to the book had more because MacArthur and his guys have an axe to grind with Harris, because they don't like that Harris deconstructed. And now they want to sell their brand of disentangling. Even in 2023, despite being free from the IBLP, it still seems like there are church leaders and a potential cult pulling Ginger's strings. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.